You are Locked On Pistons Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Detroit, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
They won a game. All right. No, all right. I'm not going to be that obnoxious. Welcome into a live Locked On Pistons Postcast. First win of the season. Monkey off the back. Fired up to have you along for a live Locked On Pistons Postcast. My name is Jake Riepma. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Riepma. This is Locked On Sports Detroit, your home for all things Detroit sports. On the post-game side of things, it's all part of Locked On's coverage, your team each and every day. Shout out to Koo and the everydayers on the Locked On Pistons on the daily. This is your Locked On Pistons post-game coverage. So if you're new around here, make sure you subscribe. Locked On Sports Detroit. We've got you covered on everything right now. Locked On Lions postcast, Locked On Pistons postcast, and Locked On Wolverines postcast. And who am I? If you're brand new, Jake Riepma, formerly with 97.1 The Ticket, now with Locked On Sports Detroit. Hey, I want to give a huge shout out to today's presenting sponsor, Game Time. That's right. Locked On Pistons Postcast is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And let's get into it. As always, your comments are welcomed on the Locked On Sports Detroit postcast of any kind of collaborative environment. And this one was a big one for the Detroit Pistons. They had to have it at 0-4, looking down the barrel of a very difficult schedule. You were wondering when that first victory was going to come about. Now, Pistons did not start this game particularly well. Some early turnovers. In fact, 6 of them in that opening quarter. The Pistons trailed by as many as 9, but were down by just 4 after the first quarter of play. Now, fast forward to the second quarter, and that's where the dynamics of this game changed. Detroit outscores the 76ers 32-19 in that second quarter. It was a nice little 17-4 Pistons run. The Pistons took care of the ball. They stopped turning it over. Cade was fantastic. Jaden Ivey was fantastic. More on Jaden Ivey in just a moment, but he led the Pistons tonight, 23 points for Jaden Ivey. You'll love to see it. Overall, just a really, really good brand of basketball being played by the Pistons, a brand of team basketball, which you love to see because, again, you hadn't seen that in the first 4 contests at a consistent enough level of play. They hadn't sustained enough like they did tonight. Defensively, they turned it up as well. Got to give shout out and props to Isaiah Stewart. His halftime interview with Smooth Johnny Kane was pretty hilarious. He talked about it being a man's game, big boy game tonight, physical brand of basketball, and that is the type of style of play this Detroit Pistons team is striving for, and we'll hope to see more and more of. But you got to do it in a smart way, which more on this in a little bit later in the program in our studs and duds. But Jalen Duren had a rough night. We'll cover that later on. But overall, the Detroit Pistons showed us a lot tonight, and I want to get your thoughts as well. What stood out to you? Let me know in the comments. For me, it was the explosive play of Jaden Ivey. I talked about how efficient he was as well. Jaden Ivey, probably his best game of the season, 9 of 17 from the floor, 3 of 7 from deep, and was distributing the ball as well. Cade, the same type of thing. Didn't shoot it as particularly well from the floor, 6 of 15, but 4 of 8 from deep, was able to knock down some three-pointers. And speaking of three-pointers, Tim Hardaway Jr., look, he doesn't have to be a superstar. He doesn't have to be, the Tim Hardaway Jr. that we saw at the University of Michigan many, many years ago. But if he can knock down triples like he did tonight, man, that's an added element to this offense. It stretches the defense, and he had the long ball going tonight. 5 of 7 from distance for Tim Hardaway Jr. He finished with 16 points. Now, Tobias Harris struggled initially, and I think this shows, and it is a testament to his resiliency. He was getting booed. Obviously, Philadelphia, his former home, they felt like they couldn't get over the hump with Tobias Harris, and it was really bugging George Blaha and Greg Kessler a little bit, but more George than Special K, if I do say so myself, pointing out how can you boo a guy like Tobias Harris? He's just a class act, a pro's pro, and so on and so forth, which I don't disagree, but it's Philadelphia, for goodness sakes. They like they said on the broadcast, they throw snow at Santa, they boo Santa. I mean, people in Philadelphia are miserable people. No disrespect, great sports town, and they are passionate. How about that? I'll settle that they are passionate. But he was getting booed, Tobias Harris was, but played a much, much better brand of basketball in the second half, and in particular in that fourth quarter, to help the Pistons solidify this one and get that 105-95 victory. I mentioned the play of Isaiah Stewart. Fontecchio was a little bit better tonight in terms of his defense. Not a lot of things that are going to show up in the stat sheet, but +3 overall. And Isaiah Stewart, again, +18 on the night. 5 of 5 from the free throw line. That's an area that he's working to improve. And it was a much shorter rotation tonight. You get Holland playing just the 13 minutes, but other than that, Fontecchio, Stewart, and Beasley, 3 of them off the bench for some meaningful minutes, but and some of that was having to do with Jalen Duren being in foul trouble the entire night. He fouled out after 11 minutes on the floor, didn't even attempt a shot from the floor, and just really a tough night for him overall as a pro. But you know what? The 76ers, obviously, say what you will about who was in the lineup for them and who wasn't. All you can do is beat the team that lines up against you. So for Philadelphia, obviously no Embiid tonight, and that whole situation is a little bit puzzling. We saw how good Tyrese Maxey can be, one of the more explosive players in the National Basketball Association. He was 12 of 25 from the floor, 32 points, but he was the only guy who was doing anything for the 76ers, and you one guy's not going to beat you. And when you play as good a team defense as the Pistons did tonight, it's going to reflect in a really good team like the 76ers. I'll take that back because they are 1-3. I'm just used to saying a really good team because they've been good in the past. But a team like Philadelphia scoring just 95 points, you're going to win a lot of games in the NBA when you hold your opponent to 95 points. So love what I saw tonight. The Detroit Pistons get their first win of the season. You'll love to see that. Now 1-4 on the year. After tonight's game, Detroit heads back to the Motor City for a Friday night contest against the New York Knicks. That'll be a fun one. Of course, the Knicks look a little bit different this year with some of the trades they made in the offseason. So we'll preview that one towards the end of the program. But Pistons get the win tonight, 105-95. Big night for Jaden Ivey, which you love to see, and Cade Cunningham as well. We're going to take your comments next and continue to break this one down. We'll also have a chance to touch on our studs and duds from the night and continue on with a live Locked On Pistons postcast. Detroit knocks off Philadelphia 105-95. Your comments are next on a Locked On Pistons postcast. Hey, fired up to tell you all about Game Time. That's right. It's the best ticketing app you will ever need. The only ticketing app you'll need because it is the best. There is no doubt about it. With Game Time, if you wait to the last minute, not to worry because they're going to reward you with the lowest price possible, even as you get closer and closer to what? Game Time. That's right. Because as the time of the event approaches, those prices go down. I also love the transparency with the app because you know exactly what you're going to get because of the high resolution photo, and the view in the app is exactly the view you'll have at the stadium, at the comedy show, at the theater, whatever it may be, because there is no deception with the Game Time app. Don't forget about the lowest price guaranteed. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And oh, by the way, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the entire ticketing industry. You can't beat that. And I saved the best for last, but the all-in pricing feature. How about that? The all-in pricing feature, when you toggle this in the app, it shows the total upfront price with no surprise fees at checkout, right? We're bottom line people. Just give me the bottom line. That's what the all-in pricing features allows you to do. So you see exactly what it's going to cost. None of the surprise fees at checkout, but make sure you toggle that all-in pricing feature in the app. I use Game Time all the time. In fact, anytime I'm able to make it out to Comerica Park or Ford Field or LCA, you better believe I'm using that Game Time app. It's convenient. There's no deception. It's all about the bottom line, no surprise fees. And by the way, the lowest price guaranteed. You add it all up, it is a winning combination. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Now remember, terms apply, but create that account and redeem the code LOCKODONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and I ask you, what time is it? Game time. Pistons get the dub over the 76ers. It's a live Locked On Pistons postcast. 105-95 the final in this one. In the second and third quarters is where Detroit really put this one into motion and secured the victory. Also, before we go any further, I can't believe I forgot to mention, because this is important. Your favorite NBA podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Pistons Daily Newsletter. It's your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with an all-new free Locked On Pistons newsletter. As I was saying, in a night where the Detroit Pistons earned their first win, you look at the ability to withstand the rush that the 76ers put forth in that third quarter. You knew they were going to try to answer after the second quarter that the Pistons had, but the Pistons stood strong, and it takes a collective team effort, takes making some shots, and it takes playing really good defense, and that's what you saw from the Pistons tonight, which is the type of winning effort that will contribute to more W's. I mean, that's what is all about, stacking some wins. But I've delayed long enough, and my apologies for that. Let's get to some comments. Demetrius McNeil leads us off with the Pistons win. This leaves the Utah Jazz as the only team without a win. How the Pistons went to Philly and taking it to the 76ers. Well, they did that by great defense. They did that with enough scoring, and they did that with a gritty Detroit-style effort. And I think Isaiah Stewart really embodied all of that tonight. And again, everything he did isn't going to show up on the stat sheet, but banging with the bodies down low, playing that physical brand of basketball. And again, Cade spreading the floor, Jaden Ivey playing very explosively. It was his best game of the season. All things that you chalk up to a winning brand of basketball, which was fun to see from the Detroit Pistons tonight. All right, Sue Yu says, whoop-re-doo, first win, build Gores a statue. All right. Hey, I appreciate a little bit of sarcasm in here tonight, because I understand it's a long season when you start 0-4, and you've been as bad as the Pistons have been over the course of really the better part of a decade. There's going to be those jaded fans, and believe me, I have been one. I understand that. At times I try not to be, but I certainly don't blame anybody that comes in with a little sarcasm and even a little bit of apathy. I mean, it's been difficult to sustain and continue that fandom and that passion for the Detroit Pistons, given the struggles that they have had. But if you believe in this nucleus like I do, you believe in Cade Cunningham, you believe in JB Bickerstaff, and nights like tonight are going to start to stockpile and start to happen far more than what we've seen in the past. I believe that, and let's hope this is the start of a resurgent turnaround after a difficult start 0-4. But again, you look at this schedule and you don't want to say, oh, moral victories. We played this team tough and we played this team tough, but you took the Western or the Eastern Conference semifinalists, or runner-up, I should say, in the Indiana Pacers. You played the Celtics really tough, and now it becomes getting over the hump and getting those victories, which is what they did tonight, and hopefully they'll be able to do again on Friday against the New York Knicks. All right. Darth Twerk says, poor Pistons. They have much less of a following than the Lions and Tigers. Yeah, well, hey, we're going to change that with the most entertaining live Locked On Pistons postcast. I'm going to get up here and maybe I take shots for every single win that we get, or we start to implement some kind of victory celebration, and that will boost our numbers tuning in. But it's not about the numbers. It's about providing quality content, and that's what we're all about here on the Locked On Pistons postcast, Locked On Detroit, Locked On Sports Detroit, and so on and so forth. We stay busy, that's for sure, between the Lions, the Pistons, the Tigers, and the Wolverines. We try to keep it covered from every single angle. Daniel Barry Sports Highlights says, hey, what's happening? Dino Hill says, go Pistons. Absolutely. He also adds good W. It wasn't pretty at the entire time. It wasn't always the best in terms of flashiness, but the Pistons are never going to be that. They're not going to wow you. And you look at that roster, and it's going to take a pros effort every night in and night out from guys like Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Stewart. The list goes on. And really, the only one that had a serious off night tonight was Jalen Duren because of the foul trouble that he was in. But you put it all together, and again, if you can't control what you're doing on the offensive side of things in terms of making shots, you can always put in the best defensive effort. And I think that's what we saw from the Pistons tonight. You look at areas they struggled in the first quarter. It was turning the ball over. I mentioned the 6 turnovers, but for the entire game, the Pistons had 17. So you want to get that number down, and they conceded 23 points off those turnovers, but in the paint, that's where the Pistons scored 40 points in the paint. They got to be a little bit better, led by as many as 21 in this one. And again, that second and third quarter, the Pistons outscored Philadelphia 32-19 in that second quarter. And in the third quarter, 31-22, they outscored. So collectively in those two quarters, 63 for the Pistons compared to the 41 for the 76ers. So that's where you create some separation and outscoring your opponent by 22 in those combined two quarters. So that's how the Pistons got it done tonight. Let's hope they can sustain this level of success and move forward with the game on Friday against the New York Knicks. We got our studs and duds coming up next. Don't go anywhere. We tie a bow on it next on a live Locked On Pistons postcast here on the Locked On Sports Detroit Network. Pistons top the Philadelphia 76ers 105-95, and they make 15 three-pointers on the evening, 15 of 36 for 42% from the long line. A big reason why you had Tim Hardaway Jr. knocking down 5 threes. Jaden Ivey leading the way with 23 points for the Pistons. As a team, Pistons shot at 46% from the floor compared to Philadelphia's 41.8%. And I mentioned the defense, the rebounding as well. Pistons gathered 49 rebounds, a couple of nice offensive rebounds. I wrote down in the third quarter when Isaiah Stewart had that offensive rebound, then kicked it out to Hardaway for the 3-pointer. That was a nice dagger. And it might have been Beasley now. I need someone to fact check me because now it's running together. But in any case, Beasley was just 3 for 10 from the long line, but I think that was one that he made. Again, sometimes all those possessions start to run together down the stretch, but that's just my tiny little brain. Bear with me if you're a fan of Locked On Sports Detroit and you've watched these before. You know that will happen from time to time. But hey, when you talk for a half hour straight, sometimes things like that are going to happen. Now, studs and duds portion of the program. Studs, let's start on a high note with Jaden Ivey. What a game for Jaden Ivey. He had his best performance of the season with 23 points plus 3 on the night, 3 of 7 from the long line, 2 of 2 from the charity stripe, and 9 of 17 from the floor. He also forced 2 steals. And coming into this game, the Pistons were one of the worst teams in generating steals collectively as a team. So it's good to see the Pistons get some steals and start to put some pressure on the opposition there. Other studs, got to give it to Cade Cunningham in 37 minutes. Yes, he didn't shoot the ball particularly well, 6 of 15 from the floor, 4 of 8, but the 22 points and plus 12 when he was on the floor. He did turn the ball over 5 times, so you want to see him cut down that number, but he had the 7 assists to go along with 5 rebounds. Now, the duds. And this one's on Jalen Duren. And Special K talked about this a little bit in terms of just as a pro starting to learn where you can and can't insert yourself to be a part of the game defensively, or more recognizing when, hey, I've got some fouls. I got to play a little less aggressive because I need to keep to help my team. I need to stay in the game. And you didn't necessarily see that type of wise judgment from Jalen Duren in this game. He got a little outside of himself. He got a little bit wound up. He is a Philadelphia kid, though, so perhaps that had something to do with it. I'm just speculating. There's no way to tell, but I know the next time the Pistons play the Philadelphia 76ers, we can expect more from Jalen Duren. All right, that's going to tie a bow on the studs and duds portion of the program. And Darth Twerk commenting, we have Tim Hardaway. Don't think I knew that. Yes, we do. Tim Hardaway Jr. came over in a trade from the Dallas Mavericks. So there you have it. The Dallas Mavericks were ready to move on from that trade, or from Tim Hardaway Jr. And I believe we sent them, look out, Mike has fallen. Hang on, everybody. I believe we sent them Quentin Grimes, but I am about to confirm that as we speak. That sent him to Detroit. Quentin Grimes in exchange for 3 future second-round picks. So the Pistons will get 3 future second-round picks in exchange for Quentin Grimes. And I know the Mavericks are very high on Quentin Grimes and what he can bring for their roster that has championship aspirations, given they are the defending Western Conference champions and represented the Western Conference. They obviously added Klay Thompson in the offseason and are off to a 3-1 start. They just beat Minnesota on the road on the second night of a back-to-back, no less, in which Kyrie Irving had 35 and Luka Doncic only had 24, but one of them was a dagger 3 to put it on ice. But that's enough about the Mavs. Just kind of started to, derail. That's the term I'm looking for. Train derailed a little bit there. But yes, Tim Hardaway Jr. is a member of the Detroit Pistons. And the Detroit Pistons are now 1-4 after the victory over the Philadelphia 76ers. You absolutely love to see it. 105-95, the final in this one. And how about the play of Jaden Ivey? 23 points in 37 minutes. He was spectacular. All right. That's going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Pistons Postcast. As always, we thank you so much for tuning in. And where can you find us? Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, on YouTube, Locked On Sports Detroit. It's all part of the Locked On Network, your team each and every day. Don't forget, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Pistons daily newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Pistons newsletter. As always, your comments are appreciated. Your views, your viewership, whatever you want to say, is also appreciated. My name is Jake Riepma. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Riepma. Not sure what happened to our little Twitter icon. YouTube making all kinds of changes. We'll try to keep up next time, but it's always a pleasure to be on the air with you. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Locked On Pistons Postcast. Detroit knocks off Philadelphia 105-95, and we will see you next time on Locked On Sports Detroit. Have a wonderful evening.